I also asked for any thoughts that folks might have on the question from yesterday about the strangest thing you've ever seen in someone else's house. I've failed to come up with anything good. I'm sure there's something really strange I've seen somewhere that I just can't remember. So maybe it wasn't that strange. I saw one or two sprinkled in today, so I'll mention those as I see them. Here we go. PFT PM Posse. Is there a benefit for teams to draft early or reach for the consensus best players at undervalued positions like running back versus taking a chance on 1 out of 10 defensive ends in the first round and hoping you draft the right one of the few first rounders left when it's time to draft? I think if I understand this, basically, if there's a guy who is consensus can't miss, will be one of the best at his position, at a position where the parts are interchangeable, when do you draft that guy? Do you draft him round 1? That was the Bijan Robinson debate. Does he go top 10 simply because he's one of the top 3 overall talents in the draft class? And the Falcons were willing to do it. And I have a feeling some fans of other teams that drafted higher than the Falcons are going to wish that their team had drafted Bijan Robinson. So, yeah, I think there is. And, you know, we used to hear a lot the debate of need versus best available. And I think the reality is when it's time to draft, the assessment of best available is shaped by need. Because what if you're one of these teams and you made a trade and you're in the top 5 because you made a trade with a bad team and you're picking 3rd overall and you've got a franchise quarterback and the best available player is a franchise quarterback? You're not going to draft that guy. You're not. Your needs and your best available come together and they influence what you ultimately do when it's time to make that pick. But that idea of surplus value is very real. And if you're ever going to overspend your capital, it's probably better to do it in the draft than it is to do it when you're paying that person the second contract, because you're going to get a running back if you go top 10, you know, at a rate that is dictated by the rookie wage scale, not at some inflated rate dictated by the upper end of the market where Christian McCaffrey is the current outlier at $16 million a year. Jeremy Dodd, can the NFLPA fight for a luxury tax system in the next CBA negotiations, and can the NFL work without a hard salary cap? Well, yes, they can. I don't think the NFL wants to find out. The NFL loves parity. The NFL loves the fact that in any given year, any given team can indeed be relevant, can indeed make the playoffs. No matter how bad you were last year, that keeps 32 fan bases fully engaged all season long. There aren't many fan bases that I think should look at this season and say, well, maybe you'll get him next year. The Cardinals, sorry, it's true. You know it. Cardinals fans, you want to be mad at me? You know it. You know it. And I think part of it is they know it, so they got to take out their frustration on someone. So let's take our frustration out on the person who is speaking the truth about the current prospects that our team is facing. Cardinals in the NFC, and the Cardinals are the only team in the NFC that I would say has no chance. I mean, look, the NFC South has 4 bad teams. Well, any of them can win the division. The NFC North has some teams in transition. Any of them can win the division, including the Bears. And with 3 wildcard spots with all those teams that aren't nearly as good as the AFC teams, I mean, just look around. There's one team that I think can say entering the season has no chance, and it's the Cardinals. But in the NFC where it's all watered down, who knows? Maybe they get lucky. Maybe they get hot. Maybe teams overlook them and they steal a few wins. And the next thing you know, they're on the fringes of playoff contention. In the AFC, I think the Texans are the one team that I would say it ain't happening. Maybe the Raiders, maybe, especially with the whole Jimmy Garoppolo thing and who's going to be the quarterback and whatnot. Maybe. AFC East. I don't know if you can hear Mason. Somebody rang the doorbell and she's losing her mind. AFC East, everyone's alive to win it. AFC North, everyone's alive. AFC South, everyone but the Texans is in play. Because, look, I'm not going to put the Colts in that mix because Anthony Richardson could end up being a superstar right out of the gates. I think the Broncos could be better, could be good enough to be on the fringe of the contention. So I think there's 3 teams this year. Anyway, that's what the NFL likes. I'm not answering the question, but that's what the NFL likes. So Can the NFLPA try to get it? Yes. Would the NFL ever agree to it? No. Hunter Wallace, if I'm Saquon, I take a year off, live off the endorsements, and get healthy. If the Giants want to approach me about a one-year deal, it needs to be fully guaranteed, be north of $18 million a year, and an in-writing promise to not tag me next year. He should ask for nothing less. That's fine, but what happened with Le'Veon Bell? What happens if you take off a full year of football? What happens? And the Giants could tag him again next year. So I don't know that taking the year off is the answer. The problem is there's no clear answer at this point. Here's a point. Hunter Wallace, the weirdest thing I saw was the absence of any dishes beside a few basic cutlery items and some cheap pots that still had the tags on them. My friend's parents were the type to eat out at nearly every meal because they could afford it and legitimately didn't have the time to. That's in response to the question about the strangest thing you've ever seen in someone's house. That's really not all that strange. Pete Demolitis has texted something strange he saw. Let me see what Pete says. Pete says, the oddest, coolest thing I have ever seen in a house. I was once on a boat in Lake Washington in Seattle, and some rich guy's house had a lake-facing atrium with an actual dinosaur skeleton in it. That's not strange. That's just money. There's nothing strange about money. That is the ultimate display of wealth. And that's probably the point at which I should call this, because I am starting to be concerned about what's going on out there. So I'll report back tomorrow on whatever was happening outside my door. We got about 45 minutes in. That's good enough. We'll do this again tomorrow with the number one coach. We already know it's Andy Reid. We'll discuss anything else that is happening in the NFL. Check us out around the clock at profootballtalk.com. And thanks as always for some of your time. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.